Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. Our panel is moving up, getting women into top tiers of esports tournaments. However, we will be discussing esports, the gaming industry, and so much more today. I'm Verda. I'm really excited to moderate this panel. I'm one of the co-founders of the Game Hers. My pronouns are she, her, and our panelists are amazing. And we have such a limited amount of time, so I will fangirl throughout the process and get right into it. We have the honor of having Carrie Lambert with us from Logitech. And one of the things that Carrie has said is, as a lifelong gamer, I'm also significantly aware of the struggle that many gamers experience when trying to feel at home in this industry. That's why I've made creating and building a better world for all gamers the focus of my career. Carrie, tell us your pronouns and a little bit about your journey to get to the role that you're in today.
Sure. Thanks, Berta. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie, and my pronouns are she, her. I originally started my career in gaming and esports at Mega Brands a long time ago, but I really wanted to move into the actual development side of things. And so I eventually worked my way over to Ubisoft, where I actually managed community and pro player relations for Rainbow Six Siege in the Montreal office, where Rainbow Six Siege as a game is developed and made. I had a wonderful, really cool opportunity to basically go manage and run esports for Nike, which took me back to America and where I'm from. And I did that for about 2 years, and Nike decided to sort of take a little bit of a step back out of esports. What I was doing at Nike was really sort of focused on physical and cognitive development and performance for the esports athletes. So what Nike wanted to do is really understand, what makes gamers good at gaming and esports athletes, great at esports. And they really wanted to understand, is this the first time that there is actually a true level playing field for people of all genders? And, is this a place where we could all compete together, or what are the limitations and all this kind of stuff? And so I found that to be significantly interesting and important, given my background as I would say like a semi-pro. So I played World of Warcraft competitively for about 4 years in a top 10 US guild. But like I said, Nike took a little bit of a step back out of esports, and I wanted to continue doing that exact work that I was doing at Ubisoft. At Nike. They moved me into a really cool position. It was their Catalyst marketing position, where I got to work with like Drake and Virgil Abloh and Tom Sachs and a bunch of really cool people, but it just wasn't my passion. And so when Logitech said that they were basically going to be in the same space that Nike was in regards to cognitive performance and human development, understanding the actual individual esport athlete, I said, let's do it. And so that's what I'm doing for Logitech now. And I couldn't be more excited to be here and a part of this panel. And thanks for having me.
So excited to weave all of that into our discussion. Next up, we have Sylvain Fischer, Senior Esports Legal Counsel at Ubisoft and member of Women in Games France. And Sylvain still does not lie unless exceptional circumstances steal, feed Gizmo after midnight, or give up. So, Sylvain, can you share your pronouns and a little bit about your journey to get to the role that you're in today?
Yes. Hello everyone. Thank you very much. My pronouns is so she, her. I'm really happy to be here. Sorry for my French accent. I know it's a bit painful to your ears, but I'll try to do my best.
I love it.
I've played as a competitive player at a high level 20 years ago. I've started on Counter-Strike, which is like the best game ever in the esports scene. Until now. And I used to play a lot in mixed gender teams, of course, because there weren't not a lot of women playing at that time, so we didn't have really a choice, actually. And after I stopped because of the lack of opportunities in esports as a player back then, because of course it wasn't the market it is at the moment. And I continued my studies in law, and then I worked in law firm for 6 years. And I was like, a joke for my colleagues because, haha, you play video games, you play competitive, yeah, you're a lazy woman. It was very, very difficult to me. And I wanted to work in esports or in video games industry because I knew that they would understand me. And so I've joined Women in Games at first in Women in Games France to help them on legal stuff. And then I saw that they were created a small poll for the esports enthusiasts. And I've decided to join this poll and to create some great project for the esports community to help gender diversity, and especially an incubator for talented women to help them to grow on the scene and join the scene and work with other people and other genders. And I've created also a lot of tournaments for mixed gender with mixed gender teams and everything, and promote every woman who is really talented in esports. And that's it. And also now I'm an esports legal counsel, which is a very new job. It exists from maybe 5 years, and I'm really happy. I don't talk on behalf of Ubisoft. I have to tell it because the PR they will be after me.
Yes.
But I'm mostly there to talk about maybe one Woman in Games, what I do within Women in Games France and all the project. And also I'm a shoutcaster for community tournaments on Valorant. And I have to say that I really love you guys because at the moment there is a huge match and I should be watching this huge match on the Masters Valorant G2 against Sentinels, but I'm here with you, so I'm happy to I will watch the VOD after. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Sophia is who will speak next, has a Wikipedia page, so I kind of stand. I'm like, I can't wait to have one. And in 2013 was named the first ever video game designer in residence at the Victoria and Albert Museum, which I think is pretty dope. Can you share your pronouns and a little bit of how you got to the role that you're in today?
Yes, thank you very much. My pronouns are she, her, and my current role is head of product marketing at Guild Esports, which is a new esports organization. We're about a year old. We're co-owned by David Beckham. We've got lots of exciting things going on. However, I did start out doing games development straight out of uni, founded my own company, released a game. I did a residency at the Victoria and Albert Museum. Did some consultancy, and then got a little bit burnt out. So I went into marketing, but it wasn't that long before I went back into the games industry with a marketing role. So worked at Frontier Developments, which is a huge game development studio. I think there are about 600 people doing publishing and development. And I worked at P-Cube Games, which is a publishing only company publishing indie games and games from Japan as well, maybe more niche games from Japan. So I have a lot of different perspectives from the games industry, working in different parts. And I've been at Guild now for 4 or 5 months, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm finding the teams and everything so inspiring, and it's such a fresh challenge for me to work in marketing in this kind of role.
That's awesome. Soraya has said there needs to be more of a focus on ensuring more female creators are actively uplifted and offered the same opportunities their male counterparts are being offered. And she believes this can only happen from the inside. So this is exactly what they're trying to do at Fnatic. So Soraya, can you share a little bit more, your pronouns, and a little bit more about how you find yourself in your role?
Yeah, absolutely. My pronouns are she, her. Although I'm not fussy, so you can call me whatever you like as long as it's polite. Thank you so much for having me here as well. So I'm head of creators at Fnatic. I look after all of our top tier talent. My team also looks after Fnatic Network. So that quote was directly related to Fnatic Network, which was a grassroots program that my team handles with the only KPI being 50-50 gender split. And I look after community for Fnatic. Separate to that, I run our D&I working group, which is a cross-functional working group to make sure that we're constantly internally changing things. And one of the fruits of that would have been a white paper we released earlier this year. So I put my money where my mouth is, put it that way. Historically, I'm known for working in music. So I've had about 14 years experience working in artist management, managing talent from many genres across many different countries, And about a few years ago, I suppose, I got a bit curious as to what was going on in the industry, and I was seeing the entertainment industry shift, and I sent myself back to school to do an MBA because I feel like education is sometimes helpful for just broadening your mind, but also answering questions. And I started to combine my thinking there with just seeing the industry really shift towards Twitch and gaming and esports. And so I got curious, and I spoke to Fnatic, and I realized that this was such an incredible place where community comes together and where there's real fandom like you wouldn't actually expect or anticipate. So I absolutely love being a part of the team and the experience.
Ooh, so amazing. One of the reasons that I think it's important to share the journey is because it's so diverse how you all find yourselves in roles within esports and in the gaming space. And I think it's important for anyone listening to realize that if you have a passion for something, or even if you're just like, oh, figuring it out, let me do this, you can really find a path here within this space. And so we all know the stats, right? There's like the stat that always goes around, nearly half of all gamers are women. What is not always reflected, though, is at high levels in esports teams as well as in professional settings. That's not the case, right? It's still very male dominated. And so let's get down to it and start talking a little bit about that. And so the first thing, when we talked separately before this, was really around that now there are tournaments that can be gender specific, as well as mixed gender tournaments. And I kind of looked to the Olympics of recent and how they did some relays that were actually mixed gender. I'm just really curious you all's thoughts about the pros and cons of either strategy, right? So right now we see this happening a lot. And so is there anyone that would like to start us off? And let's just have a discussion about it. Carly?
I can go. So for me, this is
awesome.
Okay, for me, I think this is a topic that I think about all the time, whether I'm at work or I'm playing video games by myself, and it's something that at Nike, when we were doing research, it was incredibly important to us because technically gaming, at least the way that Nike saw it was, this is the first level playing field where physicality isn't the first factor when you consider skill in a game. But to really understand that and to make a definitive statement, Nike had to understand, okay, what does it take to be great at video games? You can't, that's a hypothesis. And so, they really wanted to sort of test out that theory. And so Nike has something called a sports research lab where they invite everyone from the Serena Williams and the LeBron James of the world to esports athletes. So we actually invited 2 members from the LPL. We had Uziah and Ning come down, and we invited a handful of female gamers as well, and sort of started to do tests like synaptic testing. We had them do balance tests, etc. Really started to understand their bodies and see, like, okay, is there anything physically about them that make them all aligned? Is there anything different about them? And try to understand, really what makes people great at video games. And of course, this is all preliminary, and nothing was ever published or officially done. But initially, it looked like there really, again, was no physical, like, there's no like physical quality that pushed you to be better at video games than anyone else. It was really about your cognitive skills, your reaction time. And historically, we know that women actually have somewhat of an advantage in this space. And so, it gets you thinking about, okay, well, if it's just cognitive, why aren't women progressing to the top of the ladder when it comes to competing in tier 1 organizations for tier 1 leagues? So that's the LCSs, the CS:GO majors of the world. Why are there no women on these teams? And again, this is my personal thought after speaking in depth with a lot of women in the space, but I think that it starts around the tier 3 level, where women actually can't break past that tier 3 organization, like break through the tier 3, I guess, like group. And it's because that's really where a lot of the toxicity sits. And that's sort of, once you get to the top of the ladder, you start competing in lower level lower level tournaments like Go Fours and like grassroots tournaments and these kinds of things. But if women are invited to join these teams, they're never going to move up to tier 2. And tier 2 is really where the tier 1 teams pick potential players from. And so I think, if we can fix, this is just one pathway, fix that sort of segment, it's possible for women to make their way onto these tier 2 teams and eventually onto the tier 1 teams. But I just think that it's so cool that this is the first actual level playing field that we have. So it's the first time that people of all genders, including non-binary individuals, can all play on a team together. And I think there's a lot to say there for collegiate organizations as well, not having to be split into genderized teams. But I do want to say, I think it is important that there is a safe space for women who want that safe space to compete just with other women. We saw in the Me Too last movement, the Me Too movement last year in the gaming space, we had a lot of women who were coming forward saying, I don't like to go to those events because I don't feel safe there because XX next happened to me. And so it is still important, I think, to maintain female-only tournaments and female-only teams and leagues, but I do want to, I guess, personally, push for the inclusion of women and the development of women to get their talent to the place where we can, have a spot for them on tier 1 teams, tier 1 organizations, etc.
I know all of our panelists feel very strongly about this, so does anybody want to jump in and share their thoughts? Sylvain?
Yes, maybe from my experience, because I started to play, I was 13 years old, so it was pretty young. And I never thought of that, the fact that I'm a woman and that it's weird that there isn't any other woman. Yeah, I was just passionate. I wanted to play and to compete and to win the games. And it's with aging that I just realized that, oh, there's still not enough women. Why? And there are multiple factors to that. And this is why this is so difficult to change and to balance that today. We are paying the cost of our mistakes, the things we didn't do back then, like promoting the place of the woman in this in esports and inviting them to join the game. And so there is, of course, we have a lot of work to do on toxicity and just opening the doors for women. There's also a math problem today because we don't have enough women playing competitively speaking on the scene. So from my experience, I would love to have gender diversity at first, right now, just directly, and just push women to play among men, because I had a huge experience and it was really cool and great. Even if I was insulted sometimes and I have some problem, overall, it was a real good experience. And as you mentioned a little bit, Carrie, I have to say that when I started to play, I played for 3 months and I had the level of someone playing from 1 year and a half because of that, because I was in a team with men who were really good. When you are playing with good people, you improve yourself. It's like at school. If you stay in a class with some mediocre people, you will stay the bad students, sorry. But when you work along with good people and great people, you are raised in the situation. So we need to push them into the global and the normal circuit to help them improve themselves. We need to give them the chance to do that. But one last word is that I think that any initiatives at the end is good as long as it promotes women and as long as the reason behind are good. And I really don't like the reason for marketing and buzzing and trying to push some women just because of their physique and not because of their skills. I don't like that. But I think that any initiative should be promoted because it's good. It's giving some good things for the future. We shouldn't criticize all the time new projects and just start to act and help if we want, or just don't mind. Just turn your head away if you don't want to hear about it, but stop criticizing because it's not productive at all.
Yeah. So I want to give Sarai and Sophia a chance to jump in here too. And I think there's this notion of both and for me, right? Like, how do we actually get to the place we want to get while actually acknowledging the reality of where we are, right? And so it was already mentioned that some women are just like, I don't feel safe there. So I'm really curious what you'd like to add. And also, given particularly your two specific roles, I kind of see like working with like Gen Z and Gen Alpha a lot, but also working with talent. So what are some things that you might want to add or examples that you're seeing that you feel support and create safe space for women?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that, like, you know, gaming and esports, like, this should be like a level playing field for everyone. But I think it's about making a space for women and encouraging women to actually get involved. So, you know, when I was much younger, I used to play competitive games like Halo, but tried playing it online, got harassed, never touched it again. However, I feel that if there was more spaces like, oh, you know, here's a group that's all women playing, or I had role models, or I don't know, Halo esports ambassadors or something like that, I would have been so much more keen to actually get involved in and trying something like this. But you know, I really appreciate all the women that go through it and compete. But you know, back when I was younger at that time, I was like having mental health problems, so I couldn't put myself through that. Just stuck to my single player games. So one of the things we're doing at Guild is we have our content creators, so Twitch streamers, and they're a 50-50 you know, men women split, and you know, they're gaming all the time. We also have our Guild Academy where we're trying to get, you know, people are new to the scene and we want to encourage them, and we're scouting them there. And so I think there's something that we can all do no matter what kind of company we work for, whether we're an organization like Guild Fanatic, or maybe we're a gaming studio and you know, the Valorant Game Changers initiative. I think there's lots of things we can do in these positions now where we can try and encourage women to get into esports, but maybe one day people are comfortable enough and there's a nice infrastructure there for us to all play together.
Sophia?
Yeah, so I suppose it's really interesting hearing all of you talk, and actually something came up recently which I thought might be quite poignant to share. So Game Changers, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's the new Valorant female competitive scene, and you know, we were asked to basically participate, and so we as an organization came together and thought about it and chatted through it. And it was something I also brought to the D&I working group. And I said, look, let's like, what's everyone's opinion? And actually the entire company felt exactly the same. And that was really, really fantastic. And genuinely the entire feeling was there shouldn't be male or female. There shouldn't be the option of one or the other. But at the moment, given it's all male, having the option of having a female team and having female representation is better than not having either. So with the view that, you know, it starts with individual tournaments that are male or female and ends up in something that is mixed gender, that for us is a huge positive. That level of exposure is a step in the right direction. So in terms of what we can do and what the future state looks like, yes, we need to do better. Yes, there's loads of room for improvement, but what do those first steps look like? I think they do look like just having that exposure, having those opportunities, and that relies on so many different stakeholders within the industry to start initiatives like that and to follow through with them and to commit to them. So I feel passionately about it, yes. I feel like we need to, you need to have some skin in the game to do something about it. And that's, you know, that's got to start anywhere it can.
Yeah. So what advice for young girls or women in general, I think in this instance also non-binary folks that want to actually, you know, every time I say moving on up, I think of the Jeffersons, so that dates me, but that just lets you all know that like song goes in my head, and I live in New York. But all that to say, like, what would be one piece of advice that you might give in order to find the path to, I want to say a little bit of Carrie, and sorry, I said Carly before, Carrie had said, like breaking through that, from tier 3. So
Yeah.
if you had one piece of advice to give like a young girl, a young person that's watching to like make that happen for them, what would it be?
I'll start. My one piece of advice is, well, it's twofold, but I'll say the first one is, there's nothing about you as a woman or a non-binary individual that makes you any less good, or that means that you deserve to be separated from the men. And so, never let your gender, put you in a bucket that's separate from the place that you want to be. And secondly, I think, and this is my personal opinion, but it's call out, bad things when you see them. So, for example, I was on, well, I won't give my specific example, but like make sure I don't want to like name any names, but make sure that you raise your hand when you see injustice, that you I'll just say, like, from when I applied to a guild back in the day when I was competing at a very high level, I was top 5 Resto Shaman and in North America. I applied to a guild. My name is very gender neutral, and so no one knew that I was a girl when I applied. And I eventually ended up, getting through to the interview process. And when I got into Ventrilo at the time, because that's what we all used, maybe it was even TeamSpeak, and I spoke for the first time, they're like, "Oh, you're a girl." And I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, how could a girl have all these good stats? It's we had no idea that you're a girl. We don't want to play with girls, etc. I brought that to light, and another guild ended up reaching out to me and said, screw those guys, come play with us. And I think, overall in general, the gaming community is super accepting. I think, that's actually a very small, terrible, toxic minority, but people want to support women in games, and the more that you call it out, and the more that you show that. So if you're a girl and you apply to a tier 3 team and you're turned down because of your gender, say something about it, because you know what, there's going to be a team out there that's just going to see your skills and your ability as a player, and they're going to want you. So don't let that discourage you. Actually, let it empower you.
So 2 great things there. One, it's not about you, right? Like, honestly, we're like kind of living in this bigger system that's making all that stuff happen. And 2 is the speak up part when it does happen. I think a third group to give advice to, if anyone wants to share, would be like the men out there, quite honestly, right? Because what you named was actually a group reached out to you when they heard about this as well. So does anyone else have kind of advice for young girls, women out there, and maybe even the young boys and men about how to ensure that women can move on up in this space?
Yeah, I'll go next. Sorry. I think whether it's esports or any kind of anything in gaming, I think something that's really important, something that really helped me, is to build a really supportive network, try and get a mentor for what you're doing, because I think sometimes when you're kind of, when you're in it and you're working really hard and there's so much stress going on, having a kind of someone who knows about it, that has an outside perspective, is really, really helpful, and it can really help, clear your mind up and give you some advice where, sometimes you don't know where to turn. So events like this, like Women in Games Conference, are perfect for networking and reaching out to people, because like Carrie said, like, we all want to support each other and we're always happy to help. So if anyone's listening, I'm always happy to chat. I think everyone else is here too.
I love that. So I'm hearing like have a community and have a support system around you. And I think it connects to like saying something, because if you don't, then no one's going to know. Do you want to add anything?
Yes, maybe from my experience also.
Yeah, please.
It's related to communities. It's don't play alone. Don't start a game alone. Really, maybe why I did so many competition is because I knew my mates, my teammates. I knew them in real life. I met them in high school, and it was really useful because you know the people, so you trust them, and they'll help you, and they'll also defend you when you need it. And it's really, really important to have someone having your back all the time. And this is maybe the difference why I've been able to to thank the insults and to thank everything. It's thanks to my teammates also and the support. So find a good community, yes, and try get to know some people, and after play with them. It's not easy because if you are shy, you need to open to people, but online you can do it. You can do it quite easily. Just force a little bit yourself, and everything is gonna be all right. But yeah, this is my advice.
I love that. Soraya, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd be thinking probably echoes a lot of what Sophia said, but for me, it's all about finding people that will back you and finding people that have your corner. So if it's for a male audience that's listening, when you see people that are struggling, be supportive, step in, and it doesn't need to be publicly. You don't need to call it out in a way that's uncomfortable, but pull them aside and just be human. That must have been hurtful. That must have been uncomfortable. I'm sorry that happened. That's sometimes enough to at least start a conversation and make people feel human. So I'd certainly encourage that. And then for the women, find someone. It doesn't need to be male or female. Just find whatever, like whoever it is that feels like a good soundboard, and lean on that person. And you know, I've got this philosophy of having a windmill attitude, right? So you keep passing it along, you keep passing it forward, and people keep pulling you up. And you know, I encourage thinking about it that way. So equally as much as other people lift you up, make sure you provide that support downwards as well.
Yeah, I love that windmill analogy. I'm gonna be using that because I can kind of figure out, I can see it visually, but also the energy that a windmill puts out, right? So I think that a lot of this is also what you kind of pay attention to and support will grow and grow and grow and grow, right? And so I think that's a beautiful thing that you've named there. I think that it would be great for people to hear about the things that have you just really excited right now. So is there something that's happening that is just kind of, I don't know, in the future, or happening now and it's not happening in a lot of spaces, that you'd like to share, that you feel like will support women in gaming, or or support the space in general? I would love to share some of those if you have any. Who would like to start us off?
I'm happy to.
Okay, awesome. Go for it.
I mean, I've only been in the scene for, well, just shy of 18 months, so I can't speak for the longevity of it, but certainly even in that period, I've noticed such a shift in the conversation and people really wanting to talk about gender representation. And it didn't feel like it even existed to me at this level, at this height, when I first entered the scene. And maybe it didn't, maybe I just didn't see it, but it feels like there's been a sea change. It really feels like the conversation's progressing. So I think that's super exciting. I think the fact that we're talking about it and there's more initiatives and the people are really being proactive to change it is super positive and something to really get excited about.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be here, right? I have a daughter, so there's always this part of me. I have a daughter and a son. So there's this part of me seeing both of them, 19 and 15, be in this moment to witness that, right? And they game. And so I think that that's pretty amazing. And then the question is, what do we do with it, right? So anyone else? I think that Sophia, you might have been going off of mute before, but I could be imagining it.
Oh, possibly. Yes. So I think obviously the past year or so has been extremely difficult, but from when I worked, in the games development side of the industry, and looking at all of the stats of just people becoming gamers for the first time and people spending more time gaming as a way to connect with each other when they can't see each other in person. And I think that's actually really exciting because people are getting used to communicating in that way. So I think that's going to have a long-term effect of people wanting to game more and perhaps getting into these competitive scenes. And we've also seen more people jumping onto Twitch and streaming their games and building their own communities around what they're doing. So I think all of those people, all of their communities and everything is going to build, and we're going to have this great situation because it's become more diverse. The technology is getting there, so we can start streaming games, can start playing them together. So I just think eventually we're going to get into a really good position where people are going to be really interested in esports, and we're going to have to do a great job of being more diverse as a response to that.
Yeah. And also, I feel like people have also had the space to just acknowledge that it's an important part of their lives, whereas they might not have before, right? Someone who's been on dating apps and, people don't want to say that they game, they're like, oh, I don't want to, but now it's like, yes, I can actually say that that's something that's in my life, right? So I think that's exciting. Other future things or things that are happening right now, Savannah or Carrie, do you want to add anything?
Yes, Carrie, do you want to start?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to echo, what was said by Soraya for the LCS Game Changers. I loved when that came out because there was a big line in their announcement that said, our intentions are to eventually, put these women onto, mixed gender teams at the tier 1 level. And I think that really, someone said this before, it has to start internally and it has to start at the top. And I do believe that, I would love to encourage, and I think the Philadelphia Knights did something similar last year for Valorant, but it's encouraging mixed gender teams because honestly, like I said, it's all this funnel where if tier 1 teams are picking from tier 2 teams and tier 2 teams are picking from tier 3 teams at the top, if there needs to be space on that team for, people of other genders other than male to qualify for these events, they're going to do it. So that's going to encourage teams to start forming with, mixed gendered individuals at these lower levels. And so I think that's a great initiative, and I would love for other tournament organizers and, to really continue that and push that forward into other spaces and other esports as well.
Thank you for that.
Yes, you always said a lot of things, and it's really good. Again, from my experience, and I feel really, I sound very selfish, when I talk about this, but I've created an incubator for 3 years, helping women in esports, help them grow. And I'm really glad to see that after hours and hours of work, and I'm a volunteer, I'm not paid for what I do, and I don't do anything but esports all the time, night and weekend. And now I see that these women, they trust us because we gave them the chance to grow on the esports scene and to show themselves. And now they are showing themselves also, and it's really good to see that there will be maybe more role models in the future, and I really like that. So when I'm struggling and I feel bad and I feel terrible for some things, I always think that it's good, what you are doing is good. Maybe you don't see the results now, but in the next years you will see that there will be a lot of women in this industry, in esports, and also as players. So it will be a real success. And what I want to say is that if you have a project in esports, if you want to help, do it. Just don't listen to other people, because if I had to listen to other people, I won't be here. And if I listen to myself, I won't be here because I always feel too shy, too dumb, I always just, I'm not so confident, but I want to do something and I do it. And you just have to give it a try and never give up. Never give up. This is the real message here. And also I want to encourage, of course, the game changers, because I'm part of the game changers as a tournament operator. So you have to know that behind there is a huge team. They're working on this project to help women. But we still have some issues, cultural issues, because it's not only video games related, it's all the society we have to change. Because, for instance, marginalized genders, it's really difficult in some countries where they are just not recognized, and there are death threats towards these people, and we have to change the entire society. And I'm happy to see that esports maybe can bring a brick to this wall and help in the future all the women all over the world and marginalized gender.
Thank you for that. And I think this, I'm thinking a lot about Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and anything that's coming out of that space. So the two things that I want to put out here are anything that you want to, what are you learning from that group, if there's anything? And are there any specific women in esports that anyone is listening needs to know about them, do you want to like put them out there and say why you think that's someone that they should know?
Hey, I can go.
Who'd like to start? And it could be actually in esports or in the gaming space, so you don't have to just say esports, but yeah.
Just talking about the kind of Gen Z stuff, like I think I've learned so much from, watching them on Twitch and TikTok and everything. And I really sense that they, because I work in marketing, so we always have to be so careful with how we, talk to this audience, because they are so perceptive to, anything that's slightly too marketing, everything which is, they want everything to be really authentic. So it's been a good challenge for me personally to really keep an eye on all of that kind of stuff. And I'm just so inspired how they would just like throw themselves into new games and really like building their own brand, building their communities. That's not really something that existed when I was younger. So it's been really fascinating for me. As for women in esports, like I really like is Erin Ashley Simons. She's the co-owner of Xset. She is so fantastic. She's amazing at what she does. She's so passionate about diversity in esports and in gaming. And I just, if you should like follow her on Twitter and everything. I love her. So yes, she's really made me think about how I want to be, like, trying to inspire people to get into esports and everything. So she's really fantastic. And I'm just going to throw another one out there, which is a little bit cheesy. But I always think about the first woman who I met in gaming, which is actually the Women in Games CEO, Marie Claire. She did the Games Art and Design course that I did almost over 10 years ago now. And it was really lovely to have someone who was just telling me to be myself and create things that was interesting to me, because going into an art and design course, I thought I'd have to design weapons and really gritty things. But meeting her, like, I always think about her advice from my last 10 years in this career. So the Women in Games conference and everything is really amazing. So just a shout out there.
Awesome. Yeah, let's shout them out. Who would like to go? Oh, go ahead, Carrie.
Okay. We're gonna. Okay. Yeah. So I want to give a huge shout out to Gen Z, just for being sort of the catalyst for pushing other generations to be really progressive. It's cool that kids are growing up these days and not really thinking about gender in the same ways that we thought about gender even as millennials growing up, and of course Gen X and boomers, et cetera, and everyone in between. It's I think it's the first time where a kid won't come home from it's the first generation where kids aren't coming home and sort of saying, like, there's a gay individual in my class, like it's some big thing. It's just something that's sort of accepted, and it isn't different. It's not separated. And as Gen Z makes their way into competitive gaming and esports, I hope that they bring that with them and start challenging sort of the status quo that Servain was talking about. And sort of like, we've made this foundation of things being, we've started, in a way that wasn't great, and sort of, it's sort of just gotten worse from there. But hopefully Gen Z can be that generation to come in and sort of say, as they have been historically in politics and in other places, to say, this is wrong, let's change it. And for women in esports and gaming, I just want to give a shout out to the A Better ABK movement and all the great things that they're doing in that space. And this is just a collective shout out to the women at Activision Blizzard King, who are standing up for what they believe in, and not being afraid to come out and say, this is what's happened and this is wrong. And it's been 47 days since the walkout, so I just want to push that message again and really give a shout out to those women and the men at Activision Blizzard King that are pushing for change in their organization.
Awesome, thank you. Survey?
Yes, really quickly. I don't have any. I have a lot of names, so I won't name anyone because I don't want to, But all the players, all the women players who are struggling, who are trying so hard to enter the esports scene right now, please continue. And even if you are not followed on Twitter or anything, you don't care about it. Visibility is not is important, of course, but it's not the end of the journey. It's you have to work for it, but please continue. And all the men, of course, as like Carrie said, because in my team we have a lot of men, and sometimes they are also facing some issue because they are defending and promoting women, and it's not easy for them. So huge shout out also for the men who are helping us every day.
Awesome. And sorry. Oh, something happened. Yes. Next up. Did everyone go yet?
I haven't.
Oh.
I'm just conscious of time, but
sorry.
I'll make it super, super quick. Sunita, who's the senior VP at Twitch for APAC, is doing amazing things with female gaming. And in terms of Gen Z, I would say the fact that gaming is completely gender neutral means people look at avatars and not names or genders. So I think that is massive, but that's all.
Sorry about that, Soraya. I lost the screen for a minute. So we are at time. I want to say that it's been amazing to hold and share space. While I love the intersections that you all started to talk about, as far as like women are not monolithic, right? We are diverse in being that. And so being here to hear about your diverse journeys and the diverse group of women that you shouted out. And I think that if anyone takes anything from this is be you, because you are the only you that exists. And you have a whole set of women here that you can reach out to for support in this space. And so I want to thank you all. Thank everyone that's been here. I am Verda, and it's been my pleasure.